I went into The Housemaid expecting a simple thriller and instead got one of the most uncomfortable, twisty, and surprisingly smart movies I've watched in a long time. And honestly, I don't think enough people are talking about it. Welcome to Popcorn Pistols, the channel where we dive deep into movies, break down performances, direction, and everything that makes a film work. My name is Jack Lane, and today we're reviewing The Housemaid, talking tension, twists, and why this thriller might be one of the smartest films you'll see this year. So let's start with the setup because The Housemaid does something really clever right from the beginning. The film follows Millie, a woman trying to rebuild her life after a troubled past. She takes a job as a live in housemaid for a wealthy couple moving into this huge, beautiful home that feels almost too perfect to be real. At first, everything looks like a fresh start. The family seems polite, the house is stunning, and Millie finally has stability. Something she clearly hasn't had in a long time. But almost immediately, the movie starts planting small moments that feel off. Not in an obvious horror movie way. There aren't jump scares or dramatic music cues telling you something bad is coming. Instead, it's little things: awkward conversations, strange rules about the house, uncomfortable silences that linger just a bit too long. And what I really appreciated is how patient the film is here. It doesn't rush to explain anything. It trusts the audience to sit in that discomfort alongside Millie. You start noticing details the same way she does: looks between characters, shifts in tones, moments where politeness feels forced rather than genuine. And that's where the movie hooked me, because the housemaid isn't trying to shock you right away, it's trying to make you uneasy. The tension comes from uncertainty. You're constantly asking yourself, is something actually wrong here, or is Millie just protecting her own fears? That ambiguity is what makes the opening so effective. The film puts you directly into Millie's perspective. You don't know who to trust, and the movie never gives you an easy answers. By the end of the first act, you realise this isn't just a thriller about secrets inside a house. It's a story about control, perception, and survival. And once that feeling settles in, the movie really starts tightening its grip. Now let's talk about the performances, because honestly, this movie only works if the actors completely sell the tension. And thankfully, they absolutely do. The character of Millie, played by Sydney Sweeney, carries the emotional weight of the entire film. What makes her performance so effective is how layered it feels. She's vulnerable without ever feeling helpless, and you can constantly sense that she's holding parts of herself back. There's this quiet anxiety in the way she moves through the house, like she's always trying to stay small, trying not to disrupt anything. And that subtle physical acting tells you so much about her without the movie needing to explain everything outright. You end up rooting for her almost immediately because she feels real. She's not written as a perfect protagonist. She makes questionable decisions. She hesitates, and sometimes she misreads situations. But that human imperfection actually makes the story more believable. Then you have the homeowners, and this is where the film really shines. Both characters walk this incredibly fine line between welcoming and unsettling. One moment they seem kind and supportive, and the next there's something slightly cold underneath the surface. The performances never go over the top, and that restraint is what makes them uncomfortable to watch. You're constantly second guessing their intentions. Are they genuinely caring, or is there manipulation happening just beneath the politeness? And that uncertainty becomes the engine of the movie's tension. What I love most is that nobody feels like a traditional movie villain. The film avoids simple good versus evil storytelling and instead focuses on perspective. Every character believes they're justified in their actions, and that makes the conflicts feel much more psychological than dramatic. By grounding everything in believable performances, the housemaid makes the audience do the work. You're analysing every expression, every pause in dialogue, every strange reaction. And when a thriller gets you watching faces instead of waiting for jump scares, you know it's doing something right. One of the biggest reasons The Housemaid works so well is its atmosphere, and that comes down to the direction and cinematography. The movie understands that tension doesn't always come from what happens, but from how things are shown. The house itself almost becomes a character. It's beautiful, modern, and spotless, but there's something strangely cold about it. The space feels too perfect, almost controlled, which mirrors the emotional environment Millie finds herself trapped in. The camera constantly reinforces this feeling. Characters are often framed through doorways, mirrors, or from slightly hidden angles, creating the sense that someone is always watching, even in the quiet moments. And what I really appreciated is how still the camera often is. Instead of fast cuts or flashy movement, the film lets the scenes breathe. That stillness creates tension because you're forced to sit with uncomfortable interactions longer than you expect. There are moments where nothing dramatic is happening on screen, but the way the scene is shot makes you feel uneasy anyway. That's smart filmmaking. Lighting also plays a huge role. The house is bright during the day, almost sterile, but at night it feels completely different. Shadows stretch longer, rooms feel emptier, and suddenly the same environment feels threatening. It subtly reflects Millie's emotional state as she begins to question what's really going on around her. The pacing deserves credit too. The movie isn't rushing towards its twists. Instead, it slowly tightens tension scene by scene, allowing suspicion to build naturally. But the housemaid trusts atmosphere and storytelling to keep you engaged. By the time the story really starts revealing its secrets, you're already deeply uncomfortable, and that makes every reveal hit harder. Now, beneath all the tension and twists, the housemaid is actually exploring some really interesting themes, and this is where the movie becomes more than just a thriller. At its core, the film is about power and control. Millie enters the house believing she's found safety and stability, but the longer she stays, the clearer it becomes that power inside this environment is constantly shifting. Who has control changes from scene to scene, and the audience is never fully sure where the balance really lies. The movie also quietly explores class differences. Millie lives in the same house as the family, but she doesn't truly belong there. She exists in the background, present but almost invisible, and that idea is uncomfortable because it feels realistic. The film shows how easily someone's identity can be reduced to their role or status, especially in a space where appearances matter more than the truth. Another major theme is perception versus reality. Throughout the film, we're constantly asked to question what we're seeing. Characters present one version of themselves publicly while hiding something completely different underneath, and as viewers, we realise how quickly we make assumptions based on limited information. That's why the tension works so well. The story isn't just about secrets being revealed, it's about how easily people can misjudge each other. There's also an emotional layer about survival and reinvention. Millie isn't just working a job, she's trying to escape her past and redefine who she is. The film asks a really uncomfortable question. How far would someone go to protect a second chance? And what I like is that the movie never gives simple answers. It doesn't tell you who is completely right or completely wrong. Instead, it lets the audience sit with the moral grey areas. That complexity is what elevates. The housemaid beyond a typical psychological thriller. It's not just trying to surprise you, it's trying to make you think about trust, identity, and the roles people are forced to play in order to survive. Alright, from this point on, we're getting into full spoilers for The Housemaid. So if you haven't seen the film yet, this is your warning. What makes the twist in The Housemaid so effective is that it doesn't come out of nowhere. When the truth starts to unfold, you realise the movie has actually been honest with you the entire time. You just didn't know what details to focus on. Looking back, the clues were always there: small pieces of dialogue, strange reactions from characters, even the way certain scenes were framed suddenly take on completely new meaning once the reveal happens. And that's the sign of a strong psychological thriller. The twist doesn't just shock you, it recontextualizes everything you've already watched. Scenes that once felt uncomfortable suddenly feel intentional. Moments you dismissed as awkward become major hits. The movie rewards viewers who pay attention without making anyone feel lost. What I especially like is the reveal isn't played purely for surprise, instead it deepens the emotional story. You begin to understand motivations differently, and characters who seemed straightforward suddenly feel far more complex. The film shifts from being a mystery about what's happening to a story about why it's happening. And that change in perspective is powerful because it forces the audiences to confront their own assumptions throughout the movie. We naturally decide who to trust and who to fear, but the twist challenges those instincts. Rather than presenting a clear villain, the housemaid leans into moral ambiguity. Everyone is shaped by circumstance, and everyone believes their actions are justified. That's why the ending lingers. It's not just shocking, it's unsettling. In a quieter way, you leave the film thinking back through earlier scenes, realizing how clever the story guided your expectations. And honestly, that's what elevates this movie above a standard thriller. It respects the audience enough to let the twist reshape the entire experience, instead of just delivering a quick surprise before the credit roll. So, why does The Housemaid work as well as it does? For me, it comes down to restraint. The film never relies on cheap scares or over the top drama. Instead, it builds tension through character and atmosphere and careful storytelling. It trusts the audience to pay attention, and that trust makes the experience far more engaging. In a time where a lot of thrillers try to move as fast as possible, The Housemaid slows things down and focuses on psychology rather than spectacle. And honestly, that makes it feel refreshing. It's a movie driven by performance and emotion instead of constant twist, which makes the big moments land harder than when they finally arrive. What surprised me most is how memorable the film becomes after it ends. You start replaying scenes in your head, reconsidering character choices, and noticing how carefully everything was constructed. That's usually the sign of a strong thriller. Not just the one that entertains you while watching, but one that stays with you afterwards. Is it perfect? Not completely. Some viewers might find the pacing slow in places, especially early on, but for me, that slower build is exactly what allows the tension to work later. And because the movie focuses so heavily on character and atmosphere, it feels more timeless than trend driven. So overall, The Housemaid is a tense, stylish, and surprisingly thoughtful psychological thriller that deserves a lot more attention than it's getting. Alright, it's time for the moment of truth. The Popcorn Pistols review board. How does The Housemaid score? Let's break it down. The story gets 19 out of 20. It's tense, it's suspenseful, and it's perfectly crafted. Performances gets a perfect 20. Every actor delivers emotionally, making every moment feel real. The direction and style lands at 18. Haunting, atmospheric, and visually stunning. Entertainment is an 18 as well. Slow burn tension that keeps you glued to the screen. And finally, impact scores. This gets a 19. This is a film that lingers, one you won't forget anytime soon. Add it all up, and The Housemaid earns an incredible 94 out of 100. A true Popcorn Pistols masterpiece. That means it's officially number one on the Popcorn Pistols leaderboard, setting the bar for every movie we cover moving forward. What do you think? Did we get it right, or would you place it differently? Bear in mind, this is our first review. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to see where you'd rank this masterpiece and if you enjoyed this review. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Popcorn Pistols for more deep dives, reviews, and leaderboard updates. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.